Part 55. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 541. After hearing this, Guyi exploded immediately. The prince is her brother, so it's okay if he doesn't help her, but he actually teaches her a lesson in front of so many people. She slammed the dongju in her hand on the ground. Isn't it just a broken bead? What's so big about it? After smashing it, he ran out. But the dongju bounced up from the ground and shot straight towards Gu Wei, who was chewing a bun. "Why Wei," concubine Lan exclaimed. Gu Switting raised his hand and caught the ball back just as it was about to hit Gu Wei's face. Gu Wei held the bun with half of it missing in his hand, his expression blank, and belatedly realized that he was almost hit by dongju, so he patted his chest in fear, scaring the baby to death. "You have to eat some steamed buns to calm down your shock." He gnawed on the buns with more enthusiasm. Concubine Lan is really angry and funny. They are all His Majesty's children. The other princes are all talented people from Yushulinfen. How come they suddenly mutate when they come to her Wei? Is it her problem? Lan Fei refused to believe this possibility. Her Wei is pretty good, but she likes to eat a little. Being able to eat is a blessing and it's not a big deal. Look at him, he is white, plump and round, he is very pleasing to the eye. Lan Fei's eyes softened into puddles of water when she looked at Gu Wei, who only cared about eating. Because of Gu Yi's trouble, Gu Switting didn't stay long and took Shen Yizi to say goodbye and left. Others also took their leave. The entire palace became empty in the blink of an eye. Zhanghua Palace. As soon as she returned to the palace, the imperial concubine collected the brocade bag from Gu Kai and said, "Let me see what your little aunt gave you." Gu Kai slumped on the chair without a trace. "Didn't Gu Yi open it and read it? Am I still different from hers?" The next second, he heard his mother's scream. Scream of surprise and disbelief. He was so frightened that he almost rolled off his chair. "What's wrong?" "When I ran to her, I saw her taking out a square and exquisite wooden box from a small brocade bag. The wooden box was not big, but not small either. It was at least 10 times as big as the brocade bag, but she took it out of her bag. This was not over yet. Then she took out a small box similar to a medicine box, a large baggage, several pieces of brocade that were as brilliant as ordinary objects, and a pile of talismans and seals. The mother and son looked at the pile of things on the table and looked at each other, realizing how extraordinary this kid was. Without his mother's instructions, Gu Kai ran over and closed the doors and windows tightly. "Mother, I estimate that this brocade bag should be the legendary storage weapon." Gu Kai picked up the brocade bag, turned it over and over, and couldn't put it down. Actually, he guessed wrong. This is just a treasure bag. The storage space is much smaller than the lowest level storage magic weapon. But the advantage is that this thing does not require blood to identify its owner, and it can be used as soon as you get it. Surprised enough, the mother and son looked at those things one by one. The first thing is the exquisite carved wooden box. After the imperial concubine opened it, she discovered that there was a mechanism inside the wooden box. After playing with it a few times, the originally small box turned into a 3-layer dressing box, with each layer having the same volume as before. Each layer contains several cosmetics, all in exquisite jade bottles or porcelain jars, with names, usage methods, effects, etc. written on them. These are a complete set of cosmeceuticals. The imperial concubine has long been fascinated by the cosmeceuticals made by Shen Yizi, and she even asked Xia Yun to buy a few sets for her. The results were very good after using them. The reason why she can maintain such good skin condition is largely due to these medicines. Makeup. The set in her hand was about to be used up, and she was worried about how to get Xia Yun to send in another set. It wasn't that she didn't want to do more, but the palace was strictly forbidden, and the queen kept a close eye on her, always trying to grab her pigtails to knock her down, so she had to be more cautious. Looking at the set of cosmetics in front of her, the imperial concubine was not only happy, but she also liked Shenyazi even more. Gukai had no interest in cosmeceuticals or cosmetics at all, so he opened the small box. There were several finger-high porcelain bottles with small mouths and big bellies neatly arranged in the box. The porcelain bottles were white, green, blue, and red. He took out a white porcelain bottle and saw King's Inwan written on the side of the bottle. There is a small line of words. After taking it, it can make people calm down, and concentrate. There are also Beiwa pills for detoxification, Huishun pills for treating both internal and external injuries, marrow washing pills for washing tendons and cutting marrow, and Bigu pills for 3 days without hunger. The more Gukai watched, the more excited he became. Any one of these pills would trigger a rush of looting, but his aunt gave him so many at once. He was once again determined to embrace Shenyazi's thigh. The imperial concubine was holding those pieces of gleaming brocade on one side. The beauty of these brocades made even her, as a noble concubine, have to marvel. She could already imagine what it would look like when she put on the clothes made of these brocades. How amazing it would be! After reading the pills, Gukai's eyes fell on the talismans again. Dust-avoiding talisman, breeze talisman, fireball talisman, thunder and lightning talisman, tortoise shell talisman. There are all kinds of talismans and seals for daily, offensive and defensive purposes. It made Gukai's eyes light up. These talismans gave him a great sense of security. Finally, mother and son both set their eyes on the big bulging bundle. What was in it? When I opened it, it was all neatly wrapped in oil paper bags. However, the unique aroma of food still escapes through the oil paper bag. Son, this is food, open it quickly and see what it is. The imperial concubine, who always showed elegance and nobility to others, was lying on the table at the moment, staring at the oil paper bag, like a greedy little girl. However, Gukai was not surprised by this. He had long known what kind of virtue his own mother was. The oil paper package was opened, and inside was braised chicken feet. They looked crispy and rotten at the same time. You could definitely peel off the meat with just one bite. There was still a trace of steam on top, as if it had just come out of the pan. The aroma is stronger. The mother and son swallowed their saliva together, and then reached out to grab the chicken claws at the same time. After a while, the imperial concubine had a chicken claw in her left hand and an elbow in her right hand. Her lips were oily from eating. Son, your little aunt is really a great person. I just gave her a Tianshan snow lotus, and she has given us so many gifts in return. You must honor her well in the future, just like you honor me, do you understand? Gukai nodded and took the last chicken foot from the oil paper bag. Hiccup. The imperial concubine hiccuped without any image, and warned with a serious expression, God knows about the brocade bag, you know it, and I know it. No one is allowed to talk about it after leaving this door, do you understand? Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 542. Even if she hadn't said it, Gukai wouldn't have publicized it everywhere. Otherwise, what if his father asked him to hand over his tips? However, he and his little aunt had only known each other for a day, and she gave him such a generous meeting gift. It would definitely be the same as the second and sixth brothers. His guess was right. Shenyazi gave Guheng and Gu Wei very generous gifts, and the other princesses and princes were also generous. Only the crown prince and the sixth princess, Gu Yi, received one East pearl. Humph, who told them to offend her? She's just so vindictive. For those who are kind to her, she will not feel bad no matter how much she gives them, but for those who are not good to her, she will feel a loss even if she only gives a dongju. If it weren't for the sake of maintaining the appearance of plastic family ties, she wouldn't bother to give it. After coming out of the Queen Mother's palace, Gu Swiding did not take Shenyazi out of the palace, but took her all the way to a palace that looked a little dilapidated. Minjaya Palace. Seeing this name, Shenyazi guessed why Gu Swiding brought her here. This palace should be where his mother lived back then, right? My mother has something for you. Gu Swiding pushed open the mottled red door and led her inside. Shenyazi was surprised. Give it to me. Gu Swiding curled his lips. My mother's original words were, Ting when you marry a daughter-in-law in the future, help me give this to her, I hope she likes it. Now, isn't my daughter-in-law you? I see. Shenyazi couldn't help but look forward to it. Gu Swiding's mother, no, what gift did her mother-in-law prepare for her? Gu Swiding led her through the overgrown front yard and dusty front hall to the backyard. There is a plane tree growing here. Palm-sized dead leaves are spread on the ground layer after layer. The ones underneath are rotten and will sink slightly when you step on them. Arriving under the tree, Gu Swiding recalled where he had buried such a thing, took out a shovel, and started digging. Shenyazi also wanted to help, but he stopped him. I'll just come. I didn't bury it deeply back then, so it will be fine soon. Sure enough, after a few shovels were dug down, they hit a hard object when digging further. Gu Swiding squatted down and picked up the things. It was a small box, and when I picked it up, a smell of earthy smell hit my face. Shenyazi helped Gu Swiding clean the box. To her surprise, it was a wooden box, still in the color of solid wood, but it sounded like gold and iron when knocked on it. It depicts a cat, a tree, and a few leaves. The strokes are childish and clumsy, as if they were made by a child. And what Gu Swiding said next also verified her guess. He stroked the painting on the box and said, when I was 5 years old, I secretly carved this with my mother's eyebrow pencil. When my mother found out, she beat me up. Shenyazi chuckled. She finally understood where Qingbao's naughty energy came from. He inherited his affection from his biological father. Gu Swiding opened the box. There were mostly children's toys inside, and one of them, a piggy-shaped piggy bank, caught her attention. No way, she is so lucky. Another artifact was delivered to her on his own initiative. That's right, this piggy bank is an artifact in her perception. Is it because there are too many artifacts these days, or is she too favored by artifacts? Is this piggy bank a gift from your mother? Shenyazi asked. Gu Swiding was slightly stunned and scratched her nose with his finger. How could it be? How could my mother give you an ordinary piggy bank? Shenyazi lay on his back from behind and leaned against his face. This piggy bank is not ordinary at all. It is a divine instrument. Artifact. Gu Swiding smiled and realized that she was talking about this very seriously. He quickly stopped laughing and said, I picked this up from the cold palace when I was a child. What kind of luck is he can pick up an artifact from the cold palace? Shenyi's Haimo. She kissed his ear and said, I want this piggy bank. Gu Swiding was silent. Shenyazi thought that he was unwilling to give it, and besides being a little disappointed, she felt more regretful. This was a piggy bank that carried his childhood memories. How could she speak? Sigh, it's all her fault for being carried away by the artifact. As a result, the next moment she was spinning around, being pushed against the trunk of a tree by Gu Swiding, and then she was drowned in his overwhelming kisses. After a long time, Gu Swiding separated his lips from hers and smiled rustlingly in her ear. What's mine is yours. If you want it, you don't have to ask, just take it. Ouch. This is so foul. But it is undeniable that after hearing this, Shenyazi felt a gurgling honey flow in his heart. In order to reward our Highness, King Chen, for being so enlightened, I agreed to the request you made before. What do you want? Gu Swiding came to his senses mid-sentence, looking at her with bright eyes, eager to receive the reward now. Shenyazi felt weak at the sight of him, and reached out to cover his eyes. You haven't told me yet, what gift is she going to give me? Goosewitting pulled her hand down and kissed her, then led her back to the box, handed her the piggy bank she wanted, searched inside again, and took out a small and exquisite lantern. How compact is it? It's not as big as Goosewitting's fist. It seemed to be carved from the teeth of some kind of monster. It was layered one upon another. She counted it and found that there were 9 layers in total. The innermost layer was only as big as a grape. Each layer is as thin as a piece of paper and carefully carved. Even though it has been buried underground for so many years, it is still white, shiny, and beautiful. Shenyazi was pleasantly surprised. This lamp is so beautiful. She took it carefully, for fear of breaking it. Goosewitting said with a smile, "Don't worry, this lamp is very strong. When I was a kid, I used it as a ball to play with, and nothing happened." Playing with a ball? Excuse me. Shenyazi was shocked and tried pressing the lantern. It did not move at all and did not break like a piece of paper as she thought. She gradually increased her strength, but the lantern remained as stubborn as a rock. It's true, but how to light this lamp? She looked left and right, up and down, but she didn't see any place where she could light a lamp. Goosewitting, try to put some spiritual energy into it. Shenyazi gave it a try, and the innermost grape-sized inner light lit up, but the light was only slightly larger than a pea. It is daytime now, so the light is inevitably not obvious. Goosewitting put the box into the space and said, "Let's go." Shenyazi turned off the lamp and still played with it. By the way, does this lamp have a name? Goosewitting thought for a while. I remember my mother seemed to call it the 9-turn soul lamp. 9-turn soul inducing lamp, this name is really strange. Is it possible that this lamp is used to attract souls? Maybe it's the ghost messengers in the underworld who use it to guide the souls of the dead, Goosewitting joked. Haha, it's not impossible. Shenyazi felt that his guess was quite reliable. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 543. Not long after the two of them left the palace, Guyi galloped out of the palace gate on a horse, dashing along the way without fear of hitting anyone. When she arrived at the gate of Zhao Mansion, she slowed down, quickly dismounted, and walked in aggressively. The porter recognized her and hurriedly saluted the 6th princess. Gu Yuhan ignored it and went directly to Fang Fang courtyard where Zhao Fulan lived. Princess, the maids greeted her one after another. As a result, when he entered the house, he was told by the maid, "Our girl went to Prince Chen's mansion with the master to make amends." Apologize. The maid complained, "Didn't King Chen get married yesterday? Our house kindly sent a pair of winged birds to celebrate." However, one of the winged birds had turned green for some reason in the palace. King Chen actually ordered the bird to be transferred to the palace. It's really unreasonable to ask our family to give you an explanation after sending it back. Prince Chen's mansion. Not long after Goosewitting and Shenyazi came back, they heard from the servant that the head of the Zhao family had come to apologize with Miss Zhao. Goosewitting nodded to indicate that he understood, but did not go to the front hall immediately. Instead, he continued to change clothes slowly. Took off the heavy and solemn prince's robe and put on a sky blue robe with collar and wide sleeves made for him by Shenyazi. Shenyazi changed his clothes and came out, and saw him sitting leisurely on the couch, drinking tea and reading a book. "Didn't I say that the Zhao family came to apologize? Why are you still sitting here?" She walked over, sat down opposite him, poured a cup of tea, and drank it all in one gulp. Goosewitting turned a page of the book and said, "Since I'm here to apologize, why not wait a little longer?" He did it on purpose. Shenyazi laughed and took out the piggy bank he got from him. From the outside, this piggy bank was really shabby, with a lot of the paint on it peeling off. "Here, The piggy bank is called puffing full, which means that when it is full, you can throw it to the ground and take out the money inside. It feels weird to have a bank full of artifacts. I don't know what the person who refined this artifact was thinking. Shenyazi paused suddenly. She seemed to have expressed this doubt more than once. All in all, she now has 8 artifacts in her hand, namely, Eternal Burning Cauldron, Star-Breaking Hammer, Sun-Quenching Bowl, Mountain and River Mirror, Guanjiao Sword, Yin-Yang Creation Furnace, Kitchen Knife, Heaven-Splitting Knife, and this piggy bank. Among these 8 artifacts, except for the Star-Shattering Hammer, the Mountain and River Mirror, and the Guanjiao Sword, the other 5 are basically related to eating. For example, the ever-burning cauldron is used for cooking, although it can also be used for refining elixirs and refining weapons. The quenching bowl is in the shape of a bowl. Creation furnace, stove, and sweet potato go best. The sky-splitting knife, despite its domineering name, is still a kitchen knife. Then there is this piggy bank. Although it is not directly related to food, it is related to money. What is saving money for? Not just for food. Shenyazi was very suspicious that this batch of artifacts were refined by the same person, and that person was also a big foodie and money addict. Shenyazi shook his head and shook those baseless speculations out of his mind. She held the jar in her hand and shook it. She didn't hear the sound, so she couldn't help but ask Goosewitting, "Didn't you put money in it when you were a child?" "I saved it, but this piggy bank is only swallowing. The money I put in it can never be poured out again, and I didn't save any more in it." When he was a child, Goosewitting didn't know why, and wanted to break the jar to see where his money went, but the jar wouldn't break no matter how hard he knocked it. Nothing happened except a bit of paint falling off, and then he threw it aside. After hearing this, Shenyazi couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for him when he was a child. At the same time, he felt that he was so cute when he was a child. He really wanted to go back to that time and kiss and hug him. It was naturally impossible to go back to his childhood, so Shenyazi took out the star-breaking hammer and knocked on the piggy bank to give him some relief. Who would have thought that with this knock, the jar would actually crack open? She couldn't help being dumbfounded. Isn't this jar an artifact? How come it was knocked open so easily? Even if the star breaker is an artifact, it won't be so brittle, right? Fortunately, her worries were unnecessary, because the cracked shell on the outside was just a protective film, and the real artifact piggy bank was hidden inside. The moment he saw it, Shenyazi was almost blinded by the flash. The piggy bank was so golden that it looked like it was made of gold. But it's definitely not gold. The image of the pig is more vivid, as if it is alive, and its eyes are still moving towards her. "Wait, are your eyes rolling?" Shenyazi reacted, screamed in fright, and threw the jar in his hand. "What's wrong?" Goosewitting quickly came to her side. Shenyazi was startled because of the suddenness, but now he realized that it was the spirit of the jar that was causing trouble. He took the jar and handed it to Goosewitting. "Look." On the jar, the 2 beady eyes are vividly displayed, and they are clearly no different from those of real pigs. At this time, Lin Chen's voice came from outside. "Your Majesty, the Zhao family's father and daughter were impatient and wanted to break in, but I stopped them." Goosewitting said, "Go and tell them, I will come later." "Ask Shenyazi, Zhizi, would you like to come with me to have a look? If you don't go, I'm going to try to give this jar to the contract." What's so interesting about the Zhao family's father and daughter? She had no interest in meeting them at all. If she had the time, she might as well have more contact with this piggy bank. Goosewitting went out, and Shenyazi held the golden pigkin in his hand and stared at it for a while. She noticed that it kept glancing towards the table. Looking along, she found that it was looking at a silver peanut bracelet. She took the bracelet over and waved it in front of its eyes. Wherever the bracelet dangled, its eyes would follow, just like a money-obsessed pig. Shenyazi knew it well. If you want, just blink. The little golden pig blinked as expected. Shenyazi took off the silver peanut, but she found that there was no opening for putting money into it. As if sensing her thoughts, the little golden pig opened its mouth and motioned for her to put it into its mouth. She did as she was told, and the little golden pig swallowed the silver peanut, licked his tongue without wanting to finish it, and looked at her eagerly. This is a pig that swallows wealth. With the intention of contracting it, Shenyazi wouldn't mind giving it a little sweet taste for the time being. So she took out a lot of gold and silver jewelry and placed them all on the table. They were so dazzling that the little golden pig's eyes were opened. Shenyazi felt a little pity in his heart. It was obviously a divine weapon, but it was buried in the cold palace. Later, he was finally taken out of the cold palace by Goosewitting, and was abandoned because he couldn't help but swallow his money. After that, it was buried underground for more than 10 years, with no place to use it. Poor, really pitiful. Shenyazi fed the little golden pig a lot of gold, silver, and jewels like food. When it couldn't stop eating, the corner of her mouth curled up, revealing a treacherous smile. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 544. The little golden pig didn't notice anything and even burped contentedly. It is impossible to be full without being full, and it can still eat no matter how much it eats. When Shenyazi took out a spiritual stone, its eyes were as bright as searchlights, and it looked at her as if she was the only one in its life. In the world of immortality, spiritual stones are not only a currency, but also contain rich spiritual energy. Wealth and aura are the favorites of little golden pig. Its nose arched and it made a snorting sound. After eating a bunch of gold, silver, and jewels, it finally regained some of its strength, and gained a little freedom outside its eyes. Want to eat? Shenyazi asked knowingly. The little golden pig blinked wildly, and the little tail behind it spun like a wind wheel. Shenyazi held back his laughter, brought the spirit stone to its mouth, and let it swallow it. If the previous gold and silver jewelry were green vegetables and tofu, then this spiritual stone is a braised pork dish. The degree of deliciousness is definitely not on the same scale. After the little golden pig swallowed it whole, it looked at her longingly and asked for more. Shenyazi showed a scheming smile. You want more? I have a lot more here. She reached out and brushed it across the table, and a pair of sparkling spiritual stones appeared. The little golden pig's eyes have become spiritual stone eyes. If it hadn't been unable to move now, it would have pounced on it and feasted on it. Shenyazi stroked its back and smiled like the wolf grandma coaxing Little Red Riding Hood. Look, I didn't lie to you, did I? If you are willing to accept me as your master, then these spiritual stones will be yours. Yes, you can have as much as you want. How about it? The little golden pig didn't respond. Shenyazi thought, wouldn't it take this trick? Just when she was about to release a bunch of spiritual stones to increase the temptation, the little golden pig turned into a golden light and sank directly into her dantian. She looked inside her dantian and saw the little golden pig rolling happily in her dantian. Master, master, I want to eat spiritual stones. Shenyazi. She overestimated the pig. Shenyazi put a mark of spiritual consciousness on the little golden pig. Since it had completely surrendered to her, the process went smoothly. After laying down the mark of divine consciousness, she officially contracted this little golden pig. No, it should be called a lucky pot. Its function is to collect wealth from all directions. With it by her side, as the owner, she will be prosperous and have endless wealth. She was very doubtful about this. She didn't know whether it would attract wealth or not, but she had seen that it could swallow up wealth. It should be called the gold-swallowing beast. Shenyazi fed it some more spirit stones, and when it wanted to eat, he knocked it on the head. You have already eaten a lot today, and you have to save the rest for tomorrow, do you understand? If you feed its appetite from the beginning, won't she be eaten up by it and go bankrupt in the future? The little golden pig snorted twice and pointed his towards her. After eating a small pile of spiritual stones, it is already able to move to a small extent. Shenyazi flicked his finger on it and placed it on the table. At this time, Goosewitting came back. Seeing that his expression was a little solemn, Shenyazi asked, "What's wrong?" "Zhao Fulan, something is wrong." "What's up with her?" "Her broken leg has recovered, and she has a trace of demonic energy." In the front yard, when Zhao Fulan passed a bush of flowers and trees, she made a gesture with her fingers hanging by her side. A wisp of black evil energy dripped from her fingertips like water droplets, and it turned into a mouse as big as a thumb when it landed on the ground. The mouse had dark fur and two blood-red eyes. It disappeared into the flowers and trees in the blink of an eye. Zhao Fulan curled her lips and continued walking out as if nothing had happened. Out of the gate, Zhao Fulan glanced back at Prince Chen's mansion, his eyes flashing a faint red light. In the dungeon of the palace, Qingluan was imprisoned in the innermost cell. It was extremely cold here. She hugged her legs and huddled in the corner, staring at a piece of blue brick in front of her. The vicious curse in her heart was revealed through her eyes. There was a gloomy and destructive aura lingering around her. A mouse with black eyes and red eyes got in, quickly crawled to her side, and swallowed up all the dark aura around her. Under the nourishment of this breath, the mouse's figure quickly expanded as if it had been blown out, and in the blink of an eye it grew to the size of a cat. The cat-sized mouse straightened up its hind legs and walked up to Qingluan like a human. "Ah, what the are you?" Qingluan was so frightened that she couldn't help but scream, "Get away, don't come over. I'm here to help you. I can give you endless power so that you can avenge yourself. Doesn't Shenyazi look down on you? You can destroy her most cherished things and make her regret for the rest of her life." Under the seductive voice of the mouse, Qingluan gradually calmed down. Feeling the evil thoughts surging in her heart, the mouse actually showed a human smile. Its shadow was projected on the wall, far more ferocious than itself. "Come on, don't resist me, I will give you the power you want." The mouse approached her, and finally turned into a black smoke and disappeared into her body. The jailer, who heard the commotion and came to check on the situation, walked outside her cell and said, "Why are you making such a fuss?" Qingluan sat there motionless, her long hair covering her face. Her expression could not be seen clearly, it only made people feel perplexed. The jailer cursed and turned to leave. However, at this moment, Qingluan, who was still sitting motionless, suddenly passed through the fence and came out of the cell. The jailer noticed the movement and turned around. His eyes suddenly opened wide. However, his neck was already pinched by Qingluan and he could not utter a single syllable. Click. There was a crisp sound, and the jailer tilted his head. Qingluan opened his mouth, sucked in the resentment, fear, and other negative emotions generated by the jailer, and licked his tongue intoxicatedly as if he had eaten something delicious. Soon her hands were loosened, the jailer fell to the ground, and she stepped over his dead body. The demonized Qingluan fought her way through. Nourished by those negative and dark emotions, she became stronger and stronger, killing people more and more easily. "Quick, go and report to the prince," the person in charge of the dungeon said to a jailer. He took the initiative to confront Qingluan. At this time, Qingluan's eyes were cloudy and blood red, his skin was blue and purple, and there were pustules on his body. He had turned into a non-human being. She glanced at the jailer who was running away. Her hair suddenly grew up, and the back hair first entangled him and dragged him back. She dug into his stomach with 10 long purple nails. In an instant, the jailer's intestines and internal organs flowed all over the floor. When the person in charge saw this scene, his face turned pale and he was sweating profusely. His hands were soaked with sweat and were so slippery that he could no longer hold the knife. After a while, Qingluan walked out of the dungeon. The exit of the dungeon is in a small, secluded courtyard in a corner of the palace. No one usually comes here, and there are many weeds and fallen leaves, making it look a bit desolate. But in the eyes of children, it is a good place to have fun. At this moment, King Bao and the other three are catching bugs and digging holes. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 545. With a bang, the courtyard door was kicked open, Qingluan walked out, and at a glance he saw Qingbao and three people squatting and playing under the big tree. There was a ferocious smile on his face, and he rushed towards the three of them in a flash. These two little things who look exactly like Goose Whitting are probably the that were born to Shen Yizi and him 5 years ago, right? What would Shen Yizi's expression be like if he ate them? She is really looking forward to it. Qingluan went to Qingbao to catch him. Main courtyard. What? Qingluan ran out of the dungeon? And almost hurt Qingbao and the others. Shen Yizi could hardly stand when he heard the news. Goose Whitting was about to hold her up, but she disappeared from the spot in a flash. He quickly followed. When Shen Yizi arrived outside the small courtyard, he saw that Qingbao and the other three were still fine. His heart was about to jump out of his throat, and then he fell back. Not far away, Qingluan was being entangled by Yi Chang and unable to move. Shen Yizi looked at the changed Qingluan and frowned. How could she be like this? She was possessed by evil spirits. Shen Yizi immediately thought of Zhao Fulan. It turns out that it was a lie that she came to apologize, but it was the real thing that she came to make trouble. Shen Yizi asked Goose Whitting and Qingbao to stay away, and then said to Yi Chang, let her go. As soon as Qingluan got free, he roared and rushed towards her. Shen Yizi's face was condensed, his fingers opened and closed, and the Guanjiao sword was held in her hand. King Bao and the others were not frightened at all. They watched the excitement without taking it too seriously and shouted loudly, Mom, come on. Kill that ugly monster. Luan King Chubagwai's face was twisted for a while, and the nails on his hands grew long, like 10 sharp weapons, and he swung them towards Shen Yizi, making a sound of breaking through the air. Yuan Bao asked worriedly, Dad, will mother be hurt by her? Goose Whitting rubbed his little head, no, your mother is very powerful, and that monster is no match for her. Sure enough, Shen Yizi avoided Qingluan's nails and turned around. The Guanjiao sword flashed past like a ray of snow, and one of Qingluan's arms fell to the ground. The broken part of the arm was covered with red and black blood. Ah, Qingluan lost an arm, and he was a little crazy, attacking her more and more crazily. It's a pity that Shen Yizi no longer has the heart to play with her. She stood on the spot, and when Qingluan rushed towards her, she raised the light of her sword. The left and right sides of Qingluan's body in mid-air were misaligned, and blood splattered. Goose Whitting quickly cast an earth wall technique to block Qingbao and the others from seeing this scene. Qingluan's body fell down, and a wisp of black demonic energy escaped from her body. She wanted to escape, but Shen Yizi's dantian was filled with fire phoenixes that flew out, passed through the wisp of demonic energy, and burned it away. When flying back, it passed over the body of Qingluan, and the body instantly turned to ashes. On the street, in Zhao's carriage, Zhao Fulan, who had been leaning against the car wall with his eyes closed to rest, suddenly opened his eyes, opened his lips and uttered 2 words, trash. But she didn't expect that a demonized Qingluan could seriously injure Shen Yizi. If she were so easy to deal with, she wouldn't have been frustrated one after another in her hands and even lost her legs. Thinking of the pain of having her legs cut off below the knees by the space blade, she wished she could pay it back 1,000 times to Shen Yizi. Zhao Fulan gently stroked the part below her knees. The reason why these 2 legs could grow back was the result of the deal she made with the devil. However, what about the devil? As long as she can help her get what she wants, she is willing to transform into a demon. She didn't know that just when she was thinking this, Her whole body was already filled with evil energy. Back at the house, as soon as Zhao Fulan stepped into the courtyard, Guyi ran over. "Cousin, why did you come back? I've been waiting for a long time." Zhao Fulan smiled and walked inside. "Why did you leave the palace again? Have you reported to your aunt?" "Humph, they might not care even if I go missing," Guyi snorted angrily. "What's going on? Tell your cousin what happened." Zhao Fulan pulled her and sat down on the steps, looking like a caring big sister. "Cousin, why are your hands so cold?" Guyi exclaimed. Zhao Fulan subconsciously retracted her hand, covered her mouth and coughed twice. "Maybe it's because I caught a cold recently, and my hands and feet are a little cold." Guyi said oh and didn't care. She started angrily accusing her of the prince's brother's crimes. Of course, what she hated the most was Shenyazi. "This Shenyazi doesn't take me seriously at all. It's so arrogant." Uncle Chen is really stunned by her, and he still defends her at every turn. Guyi became angrier as he talked. Zhao Fulan seemed to be comforting her, but in fact he was fanning the flames. "Now she has become your little aunt and your elder. You should never be disrespectful to her. No wonder my cousin wants to talk to you." "Cousin," Guyi stamped her foot hard. Okay, I won't say anything anymore." After a while, Guyi couldn't help but said, "Cousin, I can't swallow this breath. I know you are always the most resourceful. Please help me think of a way to teach Shenyazi a lesson." Zhao Fulan stroked the pattern on the teacup, lowered his eyes and sighed. "What can I do? Shenyazi knows that King Chen is protecting her. There is nothing we can do about it. Unless dash." "Unless what?" Guyi leaned forward and asked. Zhao Fulan looked hesitant. Guyi urged, "Cousin, please speak quickly. Shenyazi doesn't take you as a princess seriously at all. What he relies on is not King Chen's power. As long as he can drive a wedge between the two of them and make King Chen hate her, what else can Shenyazi do to be arrogant? But I can see that Uncle Chen Wang cares a lot about this woman Shenyazi, and they are in the wedding period, which is when good things come to a close. I'm afraid they won't be able to separate easily." Guyi, after all, he grew up in the palace, so he is not completely stupid. Zhao Fulan looked at her with a smile. "There is no relationship that cannot be separated, it just depends on who takes action." She approached Guyi and said, I, what do you think of my cousin's birth?" Guyi looked at the cousin in front of her and felt that she seemed to be different from before, but she couldn't tell what was different. "My cousin is naturally the beauty of heaven and country." Zhao Fulan asked again, "How is it better than Shenyazi?" Guyi hates Shenyazi so much, how can he admit that she is good looking? Without thinking, he said, "Who is Shenyazi? My cousin is 1,000 times more beautiful than her. She is not even qualified to carry your shoes to my cousin." Zhao Fulan pinched her mouth lightly. "When did I's mouth become so sweet? She really knows how to make me happy." "No, I'm just telling the truth." Zhao Fulan smiled to herself, rolled up her sleeves and poured herself a cup of tea. Every move she made showed the elegance nurtured by a wealthy family. Guyi suddenly realized, "Cousin, are you thinking dash? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 546. Zhao Fulan raised her eyes and smiled. "Why not? There is no unwavering love in this world. If there is, it is just because it has not encountered enough tests. I would like to see how good Gu Swiding and Shenyazi are. Deep love. But dash. Don't you want to see Shenyazi being abandoned by King Chen and becoming an abandoned wife, in agony? At that time, will she still be able to behave like Princess Chen to you? Think about it, how happy it would be for you to step on her when you have nothing. Zhao Fulan leaned close to Guyi's ear, her tone was sultry and full of devilish temptation. Guyi already disliked Shen Yizi deeply, but Zhao Fulan succeeded in bewitching her with little effort. Deeply smelling the dark aura emanating from her body, the smile on Zhao Fulan's face deepened. After returning to the palace, Guyi went to the queen's place. What? Your cousin is going to be a concubine for King Chen? The queen was deeply shocked after hearing what Guyi said. It's ridiculous. Not to mention that your cousin is separated by generations from King Chen, but because of her status, she cannot marry anyone, and she wants to be King Chen's child. Then Shen Yizi is not easy to get along with, and King Chen protect her. What will happen to her when she enters Prince Chen's mansion? The queen still loves her niece Zhao Fulan very much, and even wants to let her marry into the East Palace and become the crown princess. It turned out that she was not good at leaving the good princess alone, but wanted to be the concubine of King Chen. Outside the house, the prince who came to greet the queen happened to hear these words, and a fire burst into his chest, which burned him to the point of almost losing his mind. He clenched his fists tightly and turned to leave. He wanted to go find his cousin and find out. Didn't she say that she would marry him when she grew up? Why do you want to marry Uncle Chen Wang now? In Prince Chen's mansion, Gu Suiting and Shen Yizi did not know this. The two of them lived a leisurely and sweet life, and the day came when Sancheo returned home in a blink of an eye. Early in the morning, the family went to Shen's mansion, which was only one street away. When he arrived, Pei Xiang could not get up yet. There is no way, her body is only more than 2 years old, which is the time when she lacks sleep. Zhang Lingch entertained the whole family casually and picked up Qingbao. Do you miss Grandpa Shi? Grandpa Shi misses you naughty guys so much. Several children liked him very much, chattering around him and talking about their experiences in the past few days. Shen Yizi went to the backyard by himself. By the way, I took a good tour of this house. Although this place has become a Shen residence, she was dragged away by her mother to dress up as soon as she came that day, and she didn't even have time to take a good look. At this glance, I can't help but sigh. It is indeed the imperial prefect's mansion, with beautiful buildings and green tiles, jade trees and green trees, winding rivers and ponds, and smoke-filled houses. Scenery is everywhere, and every step is pleasant. Walking there is really a pleasure. Shen Yizi came to the courtyard where her mother lived, and the maids saluted her one after another. Those who opened the curtains, and those who served tea offered tea. She entered the inner room, came to the bed, and brushed aside the gauze curtain. This sight shocked her. Why was there an extra man on her mother's bed? Looking again, the man was none other than her father. How could her father be here? Shen Yizi swept over with his spiritual consciousness and discovered that the man was actually just a clone of his father. Her mother was lying on top of Daddy, drooling from sleep, with a flushed face, while Daddy had his arms around her. This picture is quite cute. Shen Jiangan actually woke up when Shen Yizi came near, but she always felt a little ashamed when she saw herself like this, so she didn't dare to open her eyes. Shen Yizi glanced at his father, who was pretending to be asleep, with a half smile, and lowered the curtain. When Shen Yizi returned to the front hall, he found that the Pei family had also arrived, including his uncle and 2 teenage boys. He is playing with Qingbao and the others. When he saw Shen Yizi, Pei Qinlin's face lit up, he rubbed his hands and came forward. Zhizhi. Shen Yizi smiled and called, Uncle. Hey, Pei Qinlin responded movedly. He obviously had thousands of things to say in his mind, but when they were face to face, he didn't know where to start, so he shouted to his 2 grandsons, Axian, Amu, come and see your aunt. Pei Qinlin's 2 grandsons, the eldest is called Pei Xianzi and the younger is called Pei Miji, they are referred to as the Envy Brothers duo. They are twins born with front and rear legs. The two look similar, but their personalities are completely different. One is smiling like a little fox, and the other is as fiery as a cannonball. However, they are both handsome young men. Auntie, Peimuji ran over first and shouted to Shenyazi with his face raised, his face covered with glistening beads of sweat. Pei Xianzi walked over slowly and greeted Shenyazi in a dignified manner, Auntie. Peimuji wrinkled his nose at him, obviously he couldn't stand his brother's pretentiousness. Shenyazi looked at his two nephews with interest, and touched one of them on the head, good boy, come here, eat some sweets. She took out 2 boxes of candies. The delicate animal-shaped candy jar is filled with colorful candies. Once opened, a sweet smell wafts out. Peimuji took it, opened it, took a toffee and threw it into his mouth. He ate it and nodded, it's delicious. Pei Xianzi's eyes lit up when he saw the candy jar, but he was much more reserved than his younger brother. He took the jar after thanking him, and he was not in a hurry to eat it. Peimuji deliberately coveted him, it's delicious. It's fragrant and fragrant. Don't you want to try it? Pei Xianzi was unmoved, eating too much sugar can cause tooth decay. Be careful and I will tell your mother. Stop complaining, you obviously want to eat it too. Pei Xianzi was too lazy to pay attention to him. He put away the candy jar and went to play with Qingbao and the others. At noon, Shenyazi cooked a big meal himself. When the dish was served, Peimuji was so greedy that he even wanted to eat it secretly, but Pei Xian told him so. As a result, not only did he fail to eat it secretly, but he was also rewarded with a burst of chestnuts from Pei Qinlin. Looking at the child lying in front of the table with his eyes open, Shenyazi was amused, so he pinched a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs with his hands and fed it to him. Peimuji covered his mouth with his hands and ate with gusto, and even gave Pei Xian a proud sidelong glance. Pei Xianzi didn't bother to look at his stupid look. Isn't it just a piece of ribs, worthy of his pride? When Shenyazi also put a piece of ribs to his mouth, he subconsciously opened his mouth, and then, it smells so good. When the dishes were finally served, the children could not help but cheer. They each crawled to their seats and sat down, obediently waiting to be fed. Gu Suiting and Zhang Lingch were lucky enough to eat the food cooked by Shenyazi, so they didn't show too much surprise. Pei Qinlin and Brother Envy were different. When they ate the dishes cooked by their niece, and, for the first time, their taste buds were swept by a storm. The food eaten by gods is nothing more than this, right? Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 547. They were very happy while eating, but after eating, they couldn't help but feel sad. When they thought that they would never have the opportunity to eat such delicious food again, they had the urge to stay by Shenyazi's side. Looking at the leftovers on the table, I even wanted to pack them up and take them away. However, when Shenyazi brought out a bunch of packed food for them to take away, the 3 of them became happy again. Even Pei Xianzi, a little fox who has always been shy, smiled so much that he showed his white teeth. Peimuji was looking at silly Ellie, but did not take the opportunity to laugh at him. Zhizi, the Mid-Autumn Festival will be here in a few days. You and your mother must come to your uncle's house then, and we can have a lively Mid-Autumn Festival together and enjoy the moon. In front of the gate, Pei Qinlin reluctantly held Shenyazi's hand and told him repeatedly. Gu Suiting freed Shenyazi's hand from his and held it in his hand. Uncle, Zhizi and I are going to the palace to attend the palace banquet that day. I'm afraid we won't be able to go to the Pei mansion to enjoy the moon with you. Pei Qinlin slapped his forehead and said, look at my memory, if you can't appreciate the moon, why don't you admire it? The moon is always there every month, so there is nothing to appreciate. The key is to eat, eat. Pei Qinlin is a real person. He does not have the poetic and artistic sentiments of the sour literati who lament the autumn and the moon. Appreciating the moon is just a smooth talk. Shenyazi smiled and responded, okay, We will definitely go when the time comes. Pei Kinlin touched the heads of Qingbao and Qingbao one by one again, then got on the horse and left in high spirits. In the carriage, the Pei Xianzi brothers stuck their heads out of the window and waved to everyone at the door. Logically speaking, she should return on the same day, but here at Shenyazi, the whole family listens to her. She wants to stay one night, and none of the other family members will object, so the family is happy. The land stayed. At night, Shenyazi left the three Qingbaos to Gu Swiding to take care of, while he and Pei Xiang lay in the same bed. Mother and daughter were talking privately. Pei Xiang told Shenyazi many interesting stories from her past. From time to time, the laughter of mother and daughter could be heard in the tent. At a certain moment, Shenji Ungan reminded outside, "Yubeo, it's getting late now, you and your mother should go to bed." Just at this moment, Pei Xiang yawned loudly, and a tear of sleep fell from the corner of his eye. Shenyazi rushed outside and replied, "I know, Dad, let's go to bed now." She winked playfully at Pei Xiang, "Mom, Dad is raising you purely as a daughter now. He is afraid that if you go to bed late, it will affect your development." Pei Xiang pinched her face with his small hand, "Huh, if I don't like it, can he control me? So, is it a fight or a fight?" Shenyazi saw through it without saying anything, so he hugged her in his arms and patted her back, "Okay, go to sleep." Pei Xiang nestled in his daughter's soft and fragrant arms and fell asleep quickly. The next day, Shenyazi and his family had breakfast before leaving. The carriage was driving on the road, and when passing by a bookstore, Shenyazi saw many people gathered outside, making a lot of noise. His spiritual consciousness swept over and found that those people were actually there to buy the new work of the best-selling storybook author Hung Chink, the Immortal. You are above. Looking at the way those people were fighting for this novel, Shenyazi couldn't help but have a strong curiosity about the Immortal King. How good is this novel that so many people are snapping up it? Shenyazi stopped the carriage and asked Gu Swiding to run errands and buy a book for her. Gu Swiding drove his horse to the window, bowed and whispered in her ear, "No need to buy it, I have a complete set at home." Shenyazi blinked, a little confused. How did he know that he would be interested in this novel and prepare it in advance? Gu Swiding smiled a little meaningfully, "I'll tell you when I get back." With three curious babies like Qingbao accompanying us, the journey took less than a quarter of an hour, but we walked for a whole morning. It was already noon when I got home. During the meal, Gu Swiding explained to Shenyazi, "The book The Immortal Lord is Above was written by me who found Hung Chink and asked him to write it according to the story I provided. After he finished writing, he handed the entire manuscript to me. After I read it and asked him to revise it several times, I took the manuscript to a bookstore and printed it. Later, I asked people to publicize it in various tea houses and restaurants, Qin Luchu Pavilion, and this book The Immortal Lord is Above became very popular." Shenyazi became even more confused after hearing this. When did he become interested in novel publishing? Are you still spending a lot of time and money to spread the word? If you say it's to make money, isn't that a joke? Gu Swiding smiled mysteriously, "When you read this book, you will know why I did this." His words made Shenyazi lose interest in eating. After finishing the meal hastily, he picked up The Immortal King and looked at it. After reading the first 3 chapters, she knew Gu Swiding's intention of doing this. A young man who was chased by his enemies fell off a cliff and was seriously injured. He was rescued by Rong Xiaoxian, the leader of the Miracle Doctor sect, and then met the beautiful and gentle young leader of the Miracle Doctor sect. This is the content of the first 3 chapters. After reading it, Shenyazi felt a strong sense of déjà vu. The miraculous doctor sect in the novel is not an allusion to the celestial doctor sect. The name of the sect master is also the same, Rong Xiaoxian, which is obviously an allusion to Rong Xianer. And the plot in which this young man was chased and fell off a cliff and was rescued by Rong Xiaoxian, isn't that what Han Beiluo's mother experienced back then? It's just that the gender of the character has been changed. You want to expose the evil deeds of the immortal doctor sect through the storybook. Shen Yizi immediately guessed Gu Switting's intention. Gu Switting nodded and was about to speak when Shen Yizi stopped him. Wait, don't tell me yet, let me guess. She rolled the novel into a cylinder and put it on her chin. Fairy doctors walk around the world under the guise of saving people, but in fact, they are the creators of disasters. They just want to serve as saviors when people are desperate and distressed. The appearance of the Immortal Medicine sect appears, and the Immortal Medicine sect does this to collect merit. The image of the Immortal Medical sect in rescuing people who are in distress is too deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. If what they do is directly exposed to the world will probably not believe it. But if it is revealed through a script, some people will always have doubts about the Immortal Medical section. It won't be easy if you want to take action again. And the things that the Immortal Medical sect has done in the past are not without any clues. Once someone is willing to investigate, they will always find something. Even if you can't find out, you will definitely take the opportunity to hand over the evidence you have collected to them. When the time comes, the image of the Immortal Medicine sect's hard work will collapse, and everyone in the world will scold them, and Rong Xiener will no longer be able to collect merits. Am I right? Gu Switting tapped her nose with a fond look on her face. That's right. The power of gossip and public opinion is huge. With the vigorous publicity and momentum building by Gu Switting's men, the novel The Immortal King became popular throughout the imperial capital and radiated outward at an extremely fast speed. The storyteller moved the novel The Immortal King into a tea house, and the theater troupe moved it onto the stage. This resulted in most people being able to tell the plot clearly even if they did not read the storybook. Clear and logical. In this novel, the miracle doctor is a deep hidden villain who frequently kills the protagonist. In order to practice evil, he constantly causes disasters in various places and appears as a savior to deceive the world. Readers/listeners/fans hate it with all their teeth. In the streets and alleys, after tea and dinner, the topic of the Immortal King is talked about by people from time to time. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 548. In a tea house, the storyteller was startled and began to speak with saliva flying around. Just as he was getting to the exciting point, an indignant guest slammed the table. This sect of immortal medicine is nothing. They do one thing on the surface and another behind the scenes, and they have killed so many people, yet they can still enjoy the enjoyment of the common people without any harm. The statue of the sect leader should be smashed to pieces to see how she can absorb merit and practice evil arts to harm people. Attention, this person said immortal medicine sect, but he did not make a mistake, but did it on purpose. There are allusions to the fairy doctor sect both inside and outside the words. Others also followed suit to denounce the immortal medicine sect. As for the miraculous medical school in the book, that's not important. Regardless of whether it is a sect of immortal doctors or miraculous doctors, they should be severely criticized. At the end of the day, the sect of miraculous doctors was no longer mentioned. When people talked about it, it was just like how is the sect of miraculous doctors. In Prince Chen's mansion, Shen Yizi was very happy to hear about this. Time flies by, and the Mid-Autumn Festival is soon here. The sweet-scented osman thus in the house has long been in bloom. When Shen Yizi woke up in the morning and opened the window, the cool and faint fragrance of sweet-scented osman thus reached her nose. She took a deep breath and her mood became fragrant. Gu Switting hugged her from behind, resting his chin on the hair on top of her head, and locked her in front of his chest with his arms. The couple hugged each other quietly, enjoying the tranquility of the morning, with a tenderness flowing between them. However, this tranquility was soon broken. Because of the strong insertion of 3 small light bulbs. Qingbao, Mom, you said yesterday that you would take us to my uncle's house. When should we go? Nian Nian, it smells so good outside, Aunt Chen, Let's pick all those Osman thus flowers and make Osman thus cakes. Yuan Bao saluted the two of them like a grown-up, father, mother. This is how a happy day begins. In the morning, Shen Yazi made sweet-scented Osman thus cake as he had wished. Of course, he used dried sweet-scented Osman thus that he had prepared before. After breakfast, the family of 5 went to Shen's mansion first, picked up Pei's Yang, and then transferred to Pei's mansion. The entire Pei family welcomed their arrival. Pei Muji ran directly to Shen Yazi and said, "Auntie, did you bring me something delicious?" His mother, Shen Yazi's eldest cousin-in-law, Zhen, glared at him, "Muir, why are you talking to your aunt?" He apologized to Shen Yazi and said, "This child is neither big nor small." Shen Yazi stroked Pei Muji's head, "Why should a family see each other outside? I just like Amu's temperament." He took out a big gift box and said, "It's full of food. Take it and share it with your brothers and sisters." Pei Muji opened the box and let out a pleasant surprise. The box is an assorted heart-shaped box. There are 8 small boxes in the shape of melon seeds surrounding the central round box. Each box contains a kind of snack or candy. There is a dazzling array of colors, and the shapes are all exquisite and cute, which instantly won the unanimous love of children. Although this box is not big, it actually has space runes engraved inside, so the capacity is quite considerable. The children were amazed again after discovering this. Under the leadership of the 2 brothers Pei Xianzi, the 3 Qingbaos quickly integrated into the children's social circle and went to have fun in various parts of the garden. In the hall, Shen Yazi took out another gift box and said, "This is the mooncake I made myself. Uncle, you can try it." As soon as she heard that she had made it herself, Pei Qinlin opened it immediately. Mrs. Pei next to her scolded, "Looking at what you look like, you can't even call it a joke." Pei Qinlin smiled and did not refute. The mooncakes are divided into 2 layers, with a total of 18 pieces, each one is small and exquisite. There is still a warm aroma, as if it has just been baked. This is because after Shen Yazi made it, he put it in the space warehouse and kept it fresh and warm. The elder Pei Qinlin, like a kindergarten teacher, handed out the mooncakes one by one, one to each person, and finally there was one left. He originally wanted to sneak it out by himself, but as soon as Mrs. Pei glanced at her, he immediately handed out the mooncakes. Offered. Mrs. Pei divided the mooncake, which was not large, into 4, and gave 3 pieces to her 3 daughters-in-law. She put the last piece into her mouth, chewed it slowly, and swallowed it with some reluctance. I heard that at last year's Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, the 5th prince presented a box of mooncakes. I heard that the mooncakes were so delicious that the emperor and the queen mother almost fought over them. Those who were lucky enough to taste one couldn't forget it. Mrs. Pei laughed it off at the time and didn't believe it at all. It's not like she had never eaten mooncakes before. How could they be so delicious, no matter how delicious they were? The emperor and the queen mother have never tasted any delicacies, how can they fight over a mere piece of mooncake? Now, after eating the mooncakes made by her niece, she realized how narrow-minded her original thoughts were. This is not a piece of mooncake, it is simply a piece of fairy cake. Zhizi, these mooncakes are so delicious. Mrs. Pei took Shen Yazi's hand and praised her sincerely. She wanted to ask her if there were more, but she couldn't open her mouth. Shen Yazi smiled and said, "Auntie, if you like it, that's fine. I have more here. If you don't mind, I'll get you a few more boxes." The reason why I didn't give more gifts was that I thought mooncakes were just something to eat during the Mid-Autumn Festival to suit the occasion, and I didn't regard them as serious pastries. But thinking about how many relatives she had gained after marrying Goosewitting, she deliberately made a lot more when she made it, and the inventory in the warehouse was sufficient. Of course, when making it, most of the work is actually done by the puppet in the space. She is also responsible for adjusting the fillings and then sending them to the ever-burning cauldron for baking. so it didn't take much effort. Mrs. was overjoyed when she heard what she said. I don't dislike it, I don't dislike it. How could I dislike it? She was happy before it was too late. Shenyazi took out 5 more boxes. Mrs. got 5 boxes at once, and she couldn't smile from ear to ear. Seeing her 3 daughters-in-law looking at her eagerly, and not wanting to eat alone, she gave 1 box to one daughter-in-law, and asked the maid to put away the remaining 2 boxes. She planned to keep 1 box for herself and send the other box back to her family so that her old mother could have a taste. The Mid-Autumn Festival banquet at noon was held in the front hall, and there were no outsiders in the hall, so it was a very happy meal. After dinner, Shenyazi and his family did not stay long before leaving, because they had to go to the palace to attend the palace banquet in the evening and had to prepare in advance. At the beginning of the Yashi period, 1700 hours, a family of 5 dressed up set out for the palace. Both husband and wife are dressed in purple. Goosewitting is noble and graceful, while Shenyazi is elegant and gorgeous. They look like pearls reflecting jade, complementing each other and perfectly matching each other. The 3 Qingbaos are as delicate and cute as little fairy children. After being dressed up, they make people want to hold them in their arms and rub them. Before setting off, Shenyazi gave each of them a hat. The hat is inlaid with soybean-sized pearls, woven into different cartoon patterns. In the center is a thumb-sized cat's eye, surrounded by colorful gems, which look shiny and sparkling. It makes them look cute and lovely. But King Bao and Nian Nian found it too heavy, so they stopped wearing it after a while and threw it aside. When getting out of the car, Shenyazi put them on again and said, "Hey, it's a bit cold at night, so put on your hat to prevent the wind from catching your head. Also, don't run around after entering the palace, okay?" "I know, mother." "Aunt Chen, you are so long-winded." The 2 held hands and jumped forward 1 step ahead. Shenyazi stood there, sighing like an old mother, looked at each other helplessly with goosewitting, took the most well-behaved Yuan Bao, and entered the palace together. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 549. The palace banquet was held in Chenjui Hall. The night pearls and small-sized candles in the hall shone brightly, illuminating every detail in the hall. When Shenyazi and Goosewitting arrived, people were almost there. Although today's Mid-Autumn Palace banquet is a family banquet, the royal family has always been flourishing. Even though those who are eligible to attend the banquet today are relatively close royal family members, the number of people is still considerable. There are many people in the huge hall. Goosewitting and Shenyazi led the 3 children towards their seats. Along the way, relatives from the clan came over from time to say hello or tease Qingbao and the other 3. At this time, the banquet has not yet begun. Everyone in the palace did not sit in their seats in a disciplined manner. Instead, they moved around and gathered together in 2s and 3s to exchange feelings. At Yashi, 6 o'clock, a bright moon rose into the sky, and the Queen Mother stepped down from the phoenix throne above. "Everyone, please follow me to the Zixiao Palace for the moon worship ceremony." The Emperor and the Empress took the lead to follow, and everyone else followed behind. Shenyazi hurriedly called back Qingbao and the others who were playing around the palace pillars, and led them out together with Goosewitting. Qingbao asked, "Dad, what is the moon sacrifice ceremony?" "It is a ritual to worship the night god, who is also the moon god, and pray to the night to bless us safely and reunite us." "Oh, who is the night god? Have you seen him before? Is he good at making mooncakes?" Qingbao continued to ask 3 questions in a row. Goosewitting was stuck and thought to himself, "You are so stupid. Didn't Uncle Goo say that the night god is the moon god? The moon god must be the deity living in the moon palace. Uncle Gu shouldn't be able to see the deities in the sky, right? Nian is right, we can't see the gods in the sky. As for Yeming Shen, is he good at making mooncakes? Shen Yizi, the gods eat the wind and drink the dew and don't need to eat, so the night god doesn't know how to make mooncakes, right? Then where did the mooncakes come from? This question has a long history. It happened that Xixiao Palace also arrived. Shen Yizi breathed a sigh of relief, I'll tell you when I get back. Xixiao Palace is here. We have to keep quiet. Don't make noise in front of the gods. In front of the Xixiao Palace, there is a huge osmanthus tree, more than 10 meters high, with a cloud-like crown and a fragrant fragrance. Under this tall sweet-scented osmanthus tree, a 10-meter-high silver-white damask gold-topped Yunlong temple has long been erected, which is called the Yeming Temple. The moon worship ceremony was held in this Yeming Temple. In the center of the large window is a long 9-dragon hollow inked jade table. On the table is a shrine enshrining the Yeming seat and a large pagoda-style mooncake. The bottom one is as big as a millstone, with 9 floors in total. Next to it are several exquisite snacks and a bright red dongting red dafu orange. Snow-colored silk is hung around the tent and on the ceiling, fluttering in the wind, and is extremely elegant. The moonlight shines down from the top, and everything in the tent looks clear, making those who step in feel like they are in the cold Wonderland. After the Queen Mother led everyone to worship, she cut the mooncakes that had been sacrificed on the table into small pieces and distributed them to everyone. Pastries and fruits that have been offered to the gods are generally considered to be blessed with blessings, and you can also get blessings from the gods after eating them. When the palace attendants came over with mooncakes, Gu Switting suddenly noticed a trace of evil aura. It's a pity that this trace of evil spirit is too weak, and he can't find any trace when he tries to trace it. Qingbao and the other 3 had been waiting for the mooncakes for a long time. When they saw the palace attendant coming, they spread out their little hands first. The palace attendant smiled and picked up the mooncakes cut into small pieces with chopsticks, placed them in the hands of the 3 of them one by one, and said a few pleasant words of blessing. King Bao and the other 3 took the mooncakes they had received and were about to put them into their mouths, but Gu Switting stopped them. There will be a lot of delicious food later, and eating mooncakes will easily occupy your stomach. Daddy will help you put them away first, and wait until you get back eat again, okay? Qingbao and the others were more curious about the mooncakes than they wanted to eat them. After hearing what he said, they handed the mooncakes to him obediently. As soon as Gu Switting closed his palms, the mooncake in his palm disappeared. Shen Yizi sent him a message, what's wrong with this mooncake? Gu Switting, I noticed a trace of evil energy just now, but I can't find the specific source of the evil energy. It's better not to eat this mooncake. Shen Yizi felt his heart tremble. The imperial palace is shrouded in dragon energy all year round. Ordinary evil spirits cannot get close at all. Once they get close, they will be shattered by the dragon energy. But now the evil spirit has actually sneaked into the palace. It can only be said that the monster is unusually powerful. Shen Yizi and Gu Switting looked at each other, and both of them secretly increased their vigilance. After the ceremony, everyone returned to Qinjui Hall and the banquet officially began. The price of the dishes comes up, and the various programs of music and dance are arranged, and the atmosphere in the hall is getting more and more hilarious. As time goes by, the moon in the sky becomes rounder and brighter. It just so happened that everyone had almost eaten and needed to go out for a walk to eat, or to blow in the wind to dispel the alcohol. More, it's better to go outside and enjoy the moon. The moon on the night of August 15th is probably the roundest and brightest in the year. It would be a pity not to appreciate it. There is a platform in the palace, which was built specifically for admiring the moon. It is several meters high and is the tallest building in the entire palace. From this platform, the entire imperial city can be seen. Under the platform, there is a meandering Qinghe River. On the river, painted boats are swaying. Silver ornaments and colorful palace lanterns are hung on the boats. The palace people are playing and performing on the boats, and bursts of clear sound are rippling on the river. On the river bank, the palace people set off fireworks and lanterns along the river. The sky and the river were all bright. In this magnificent scene, the bright moon in the sky looks increasingly cold. At this moment, a person appeared in the moon. "Look, someone is dancing in the moon," someone screamed. Others looked up one after another. "Isn't that Chang'e in the Guanggan Palace?" someone asked foolishly. The fairy in the moon flicked his sleeves and flew down from the sky, his clothes fluttering, like a fairy coming on the wind. Everyone looked on in fascination, with dreamy expressions on their faces, as if they had fallen into a very beautiful dream. Only Shenyazi and Gu Switting remained awake. She quickly fed each of the 3 children a King's-In pill to keep them sane. Finally, the dancing person descended to a certain height, and Shenyazi recognized her identity. Zhao Folan. She was wearing a fluttering white dress made like the moonlight, exuding fairy spirit. There were bells on each wrist and ankle, which made clear and sweet sounds as she moved. When she landed on the platform and saluted the Queen Mother and the Emperor, everyone woke up as if from a dream. "Folan is showing off her ugliness." Zhao Folan lowered his head gracefully, revealing a section of his neck as slender as white jade. The Emperor was still immersed in the stunning aftertaste of the dance just now, and laughed heartily when he heard this. "Folan, you are too modest. If this is all about showing off, how can you live with the dancers in the music bureau? By the way, what's the name of this dance?" "Adorable Baby, the Miracle Doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 550. The Queen answered for Zhao Folan, "It's called the Yuyu dance. Folan specially prepared it for today. She said she wanted to entertain the bride with colorful clothes and make you and the Queen Mother smile." After hearing this, the Queen Mother said, "This child has a heart. Come, Folan, come to the AI family." Zhao Folan stood up and walked over with gentle steps. A chamberlain had already brought a brocade stool over and placed it under the Queen Mother's chair. The Queen Mother pulled her to sit down, looked her over and over again, and said to the Queen, "Fulan was born like a fairy daughter, which compares to the granddaughters of the AI family." The Queen Mother, "Fulan is just as beautiful as a willow tree. How can she deserve such praise from you? These princesses are all noble people, with extraordinary looks and extraordinary demeanor. They are called real fairies." Zhao Folan. Will the business exchanges were made with sincerity, which made the Queen Mother beam with joy. "Listen, this little mouth can really talk." The Queen Mother held Zhao Folan's hand and turned to the Queen. "Has Folan been betrothed to someone else? If not, the AI family would like to ask Folan to be their granddaughter-in-law." The Queen said, "Fulan went to the immortal sect of the world to learn magic since she was a child. She just returned home not long ago. My eldest brother also said that he would keep her at home for a few more years." The Queen knew that Zhao Folan was a disciple of the immortal medicine section. If it were normal, she would not hide it like this. However, the reputation of the immortal medicine sect has been very bad recently, and she subconsciously did not want people to know that Zhao Folan was a disciple of the immortal medicine sect. It was blurred by just the immortal sect of the outer world. Fortunately, the Queen Mother was not interested in those sects and did not ask further questions. Although a good girl is not afraid of marrying late, Folan is not young after all, and it is time to look at her. Such a good girl will never be cheap in the future. Which kid? Zhao Folan just lowered his head as if shy and did not answer the conversation. The Queen Mother, "Folan, how about the idea find you a good husband?" Zhao Folan said softly, "My queen, I already have a sweetheart." The Queen Mother immediately became energetic and asked, "Who is it?" Unexpectedly, Zhao Folan said, "My daughter doesn't know either." "Ah! How could you not know about your own sweetheart?" Although Shenyazi didn't deliberately listen to the conversation between the Queen Mother and Zhao Folan, She had good ears and they didn't mean to avoid others when they spoke, so word by word reached her ears. She was feeding Nian soup, and when she heard this, she couldn't help but cursed in her heart, what kind of trouble is Zhao Fulan going to do again? It's not that she is unfounded, but there is always a feeling that she is here for herself, or to be precise, goose-witting. Let's see what Zhao Fulan said. Zhao Fulan took out an emerald green gourd from the brocade bag at her waist. The gourd was no bigger than the size of a thumb, but it was green, moist and lovely, and it was definitely not ordinary at first glance. She rubbed the gourd's belly and fell into memories. My daughter entered the palace when she was 4 years old, but she fell asleep in the rockery cave due to fun. When she came out, it was already dark. Just when she was scared, a man who was not much older than me appeared. My 20-year-old brother showed up. Seeing how sad I was crying, he took off the jade gourd from my waist and gave it to me, and made me happy. When I stopped crying, he took my hand and took me to a place where there were people. After that, I kept trying to find him, but I could never find him. For so many years, I have always carried this jade gourd with me. I hope to meet that brother again one day. She raised her eyes and said, "The Empress Dowager, my sweetheart, is the owner of this jade gourd. If I am lucky enough to find him, I will dedicate myself to him and repay his kindness back then. If I can't find him, I will do it myself. If that happens, then my daughter will never marry again in this life." "Oh, what do you say? How can you not get married? Since there are traces of this jade gourd, just find its owner. What's the difficulty? When the time comes, the AI family will make the decision for you, and everything will be done for you." "No worries." The Queen Mother patted Zhao Fulan's hand. Zhao Fulan was so moved that she immediately stood up from the brocade stool and saluted the Queen Mother. "I am very grateful." "Get up quickly." The Queen Mother stretched out her hand to give her a hand, but what if that person already has a wife? Zhao Fulan lowered his eyes and said calmly and firmly, "It's okay to be a side room." The Queen Mother frowned. "You are the legitimate daughter of the Zhao family, the Emperor is your uncle, and the Prince is your cousin. Who in this world cannot marry? How can you be reduced to being a concubine?" Zhao Fulan knelt down in front of the Queen Mother and said in a mournful voice, "The Queen Mother, I have been thinking about that person day and night. I have been deeply in love with him for a long time. If I can't marry that person, I might as well end my life." The Queen Mother sighed heavily, as if there was nothing she could do about it. "That's it, the AI family will help you." Zhao Fulan entered the stage with a song inviting the moon dance, which strongly attracted everyone's attention. Her fairy-like and pure appearance attracted the hearts of many people present. Those people never took their eyes off her from the beginning to the end, paying attention to her all the time. Naturally, they did not miss what she said to the Queen Mother. Some people thought in their minds, since Ms. Zhao doesn't know what the owner of the jade gourd looks like now, why not pretend to be one? If I can get away with it by luck, I can get a beauty like Miss Zhao into my house. If I can't, there will be no loss. So, the Queen Mother, Your Majesty, to be honest, the jade gourd in Miss Zhao's hand belongs to me. A slightly plump man stood up. This man is a county king, strictly speaking, he is the emperor's cousin. Zhao Fulan looked at this person and sneered in his heart, how dare someone like this even miss her? Really desperate? Seriously, then tell me, is there any mark under this jade gourd? Ah! Is there a mark under the gourd? The prince was dumbfounded, touched the back of his head, and said with force, it's been more than 10 years, how can I still remember it? But when I was a child, I did save a little girl in the palace and gave her a jade gourd. She is right. Anyway, he made up his mind to pretend to be the owner of the jade gourd. The Queen Mother looked at Zhao Fulan and asked, is it him? Zhao Fulan shook his head. Come on, Anping, Fulan said it's not you, so stop messing around here, the Queen Mother said with a headache. She always knew that this nephew was a bit of a rogue, but she didn't expect that he could even pretend to be someone's benefactor. The Prince of Anping County was even more stubborn. Auntie Huang, why am I just fooling around? This jade gourd is obviously mine. The emperor shouted, okay, Anping, sit back. The emperor spoke, and Gu Sui, the Prince of Anping County, sat back reluctantly. The two friends next to him winked at him, but their ridicule should not be too obvious. Gu Sui picked up the grapes on the table and threw them at the two of them, but they caught them, peeled them off and threw them into their mouths to eat. The emperor stretched out his hand towards the queen mother. Mother, please show me the jade gourd.